Leo Cole knew two things for certain. He loved his uncle, Evan Cole, and he hated itchy tuxedos. Evan was 32, a decorated police officer in Minnesota, and he looked exactly like a hero from a movie, tall, neat, and always calm. Today was his wedding day. Leo was 10, and he was the honorary ring bearer and security detail, a job he invented for himself. The church was beautiful. White roses covered everything, and outside, a light, fluffy snow was falling, making the world look like a postcard. Evan stood at the altar, calm and straight. But the most important person was the bride, Lila Morrison. Lila was the opposite of Evan. While Evan was quiet and neat, Lila was a whirlwind of colorful scarves, warm hugs, and loud, beautiful laughter. When she was around, even Evan smiled a real, messy smile. "She softens him," Leo's mum had whispered. "She gives him joy." When Lila walked down the aisle, she looked stunning. But as she got closer, Leo noticed something strange. Just before she said, "I do," Lila's smile faded for a split second. Her hand, clutching a small bouquet of roses, trembled slightly. It was almost as if she was nervous about something more than just getting married. Leo, who was watching everything, saw his Uncle Evan look at her with a look he'd never seen before, a look that was a little too firm, a little too controlling. It was the same look Evan gave when he reorganized the spice rack at home. The ceremony ended. Everyone cheered. Evan and Lila were married. Later, as they left for their honeymoon, Evan waved goodbye from his big dark truck. "We're going to a secluded cabin near Lake Vermilion," Evan announced happily. "No distractions, no phones, just us." Lila waved, but her eyes looked worried, not happy. Leo's father squeezed his shoulder. "They'll be fine, son. Your uncle just needs a break from the city." But Leo looked at the falling snow, and a small knot formed in his stomach. No phones, just us. In the movies, that was always a bad sign. 2 days passed. Leo went back to school, but he couldn't stop thinking about the cabin. He found himself looking at the wedding photos his mum had printed. He zoomed in on a picture of Lila. She was holding her roses, and next to them, she was carrying a small wooden box. It wasn't a jewelry box. It was old and dark, carved with strange, swirling symbols. It looked like something magical. Leo remembered Lila showing it to him the week before the wedding. "This is my only true treasure, Leo," Lila had whispered, holding the box gently. "It's called the Whispering Box. It holds my art, my ideas, and the truth about who I really am. It needs to stay safe and secret." "Why secret?" Leo had asked. Lila's face had clouded over. "Because some people, like your uncle, need everything to be neat and predictable. This box is messy. It's too emotional. He doesn't understand it, and he wants things he doesn't understand to disappear." She had tucked the box inside her scarf. "If anything ever happens to me, Leo, please promise to make sure this box stays hidden. It contains the key to my freedom." That conversation now echoed in Leo's head. Urgent and loud. He wants things he doesn't understand to disappear. Suddenly, the phone rang. It was Evan. He sounded cold and businesslike. "Hey, Uncle Evan, how is the cabin?" Leo asked brightly. "It's fine, Leo," Evan replied, his voice flat. "Lila is resting. But listen, Leo, I need you to do me a favor. Did Lila leave a small dark wooden box anywhere? She thinks she forgot it." "It's nothing, just an old craft kit." A craft kit? Lila called it the Whispering Box and the key to her freedom. Evan was lying. "Oh, the box. Yeah, I saw her put it in her bag." Leo lied easily. "Did you check the closet?" "I've checked everything," Evan snapped. his calm demeanor slipping. "Don't worry about it. Just tell me if you see it." He hung up abruptly. Leo looked at the wedding photo again. Lila's eyes were wide. She wasn't resting. She was trapped, and Evan was desperate to find the whispering box. Leo knew he had to get to Lake Vermilion. He had to find Lila and the box. Leo was resourceful. He told his parents he was staying at a friend's house, packed a small backpack with snacks, a flashlight, and his best detective notebook. Then, he took the long-distance bus heading north toward Lake Vermilion. He got off the bus 3 miles from the cabin. It was freezing, and the world was muffled by thick, beautiful snow. The cabin was isolated, just as Evan had promised. It sat at the end of a long, unplowed dirt road, surrounded by tall, silent pine trees. It looked exactly like a safe, cozy holiday spot, but Leo felt a chill of fear. He crept through the woods, staying hidden behind the trunks. He reached a window and peered inside. The cabin looked like a mess. Not a cozy mess, but an angry one. A small table was overturned, and a vase was shattered on the stone fireplace hearth. In the middle of the room, Evan was pacing, his police uniform shirt pulled tight, his face red. Lila was sitting on the sofa, her arms crossed. She wasn't hurt, but her face was tear-streaked and exhausted. "It's just a box, Evan. Why are you acting like this?" Lila cried. "It's not just a box, Lila. It's disorder," Evan roared. "Everything has to be perfect. This wedding, this life, our future. That box is full of secrets and messy feelings. It's a distraction. I'm a police officer. I need control. I need things to be exactly where they should be." "I told you I was leaving early," Lila shouted back. "I don't recognize you when you're angry." "You're not leaving," Evan snapped. He reached into his belt, but he wasn't grabbing a weapon. He was grabbing a set of keys. "I need you to calm down and realize I'm doing this for us." He locked the heavy front door and the back door, then he pocketed the keys. "No one is coming in, and no one is leaving," Evan said, his voice dropping back to that too calm level. "Not until you tell me where you hid that ridiculous box." Lila slumped back, defeated. Evan sat down, pouring himself a drink. The isolation was now a prison. Leo understood now. Evan wasn't a killer, but he was a captor. He had caged Lila to protect his idea of a perfect, orderly life. He was obsessed with order, and Lila's secret, emotional box was the ultimate threat to his control. Leo had to find the whispering box before Evan did, and he had to help Lila escape. Leo knew he couldn't break down the heavy cabin door. He needed an entry point and a plan. He looked around the cabin perimeter. The windows were small, but maybe one of them had a loose latch. He also had a major problem. Evan was an expert investigator. He would notice a footprint or a broken twig instantly. Leo remembered something Evan had taught him. If you want to find a secret, you have to look for the inconsistency. The inconsistency here was the shattered vase on the hearth. It didn't look like a struggle. It looked deliberate. Leo crept closer to the window near the fireplace. He peered through the thick glass. He saw the shattered glass. And then he saw the inconsistency. The broken vase had been knocked over away from the struggle, toward the cold stone hearth. Right next to the glass lay a small, dark pine cone. Leo watched Evan, who was now dozing heavily on the sofa after his drinks. Lila was still huddled, staring out the window. Leo took a chance. He tapped softly on the glass with his knuckle. Lila's head whipped around. She saw Leo, and her eyes widened in fear and relief. Leo quickly pointed at the pine cone, then made a writing motion with his finger. Lila understood immediately. She crept over to the fireplace, careful not to wake Evan. She quietly reached for the pine cone. She picked it up and held it in her hand for a moment. She looked at the pine cone, then at the shattered vase, then at the glass door of the bookcase next to the fireplace. Lila smiled a tiny, grateful, and brilliant smile. She then placed the pine cone back down on the hearth. But this time, she angled it so that the tip pointed directly at the lower shelf of the bookcase. Then she mouthed 2 words to Leo. "Get help." Leo knew the pine cone was a signal. He had to check the bookcase. Leo circled back around to the back of the cabin. The wall near the bookcase had a very small, high window, too high to climb through, but maybe high enough to look inside. He found an old, sturdy wooden crate behind the cabin and dragged it over. He climbed up, scraping his knee. He was now peering right into the back of the bookcase. It was a solid, wooden wall. Leo reached out and ran his fingers over the rough wood. He felt a small, almost invisible scratch right near the bottom corner. He pushed the spot gently. A tiny square panel slid inward. It revealed a small, dark space, a pocket carved right into the wood of the cabin. Lila hadn't hidden the box there. She had hidden the key to her plan. Inside the pocket was a tightly rolled piece of paper, tied with a thin piece of Lila's colorful ribbon. Leo carefully pulled out the paper. It was a note and a map. The note was in Lila's handwriting. L. Evan knows I have the evidence against the Whisperer. He thinks the box is just messy art. It's not. The Whispering Box is a secret safe. The key to the safe is where I always go for comfort. It's hidden inside the Bluebird's eye at the boathouse. Evan locked the cabin, but he forgot the emergency radio at the boathouse. Get help, Leo. The map showed a winding, snowy path leading from the cabin down to Lake Vermilion, where a small boathouse sat on the ice. Leo realized the truth. Evan was more than just controlling. He was protecting someone, the Whisperer. And Lila had evidence against them hidden inside her box. The cabin was locked. He couldn't get Lila out yet. But he could get to the boathouse, find the key and the emergency radio, and call for help. The path to the boathouse was treacherous. The snow was deep, and the forest was dark and confusing. Leo kept the little map clutched in his hand. He had to hurry before Evan woke up. He passed towering pine trees, their branches drooping heavily with snow, making the path seem like a white tunnel. He kept glancing at the map. It showed a sharp bend near a large boulder where the path split. He reached the boulder. He stopped, noticing the quiet. It was too quiet. The forest wasn't making any sounds at all. Then he saw it. Fresh footprints in the snow, large and deep, heading away from the path and into the thick woods. They weren't Evan's heavy police boots. They were smaller, but still large. Someone else was near the cabin. Someone who was trying to stay hidden. Leo's heart hammered. Was this the Whisperer? He looked at his own tracks. He was worried about Evan seeing them. He realized the footprints were a new clue. The Whisperer might be another person Evan was protecting. Leo carefully followed the new footprints for a short distance. Curious, they led to a clearing, where a snowmobile was clearly hidden under a tarp. The tracks showed the person had been watching the cabin for a while. The footprints then turned back toward the path, leading down toward the boathouse. Lila's note said, Evan had the keys and no one was leaving, but someone was near the boathouse. The Whisperer might be waiting for Evan to find the box, or they might be trying to get to the emergency radio first. Leo turned and raced down the hill toward the lake. The boathouse stood right on the edge of the frozen Lake Vermilion. It was a small, dusty shed, half covered in ice. Leo saw the large footprints leading right up to the shed door. The door was slightly ajar. He crept inside, his breath misting in the freezing air. The boathouse was full of dusty fishing gear, nets, and an old abandoned fishing boat hanging from the ceiling. Leo remembered the clue, the blue bird's eye. He scanned the shed. There were no real blue birds. He looked at the boat hanging above him. It was old and wooden, painted white with blue trim. On the bow, the boat's name was painted, the Bluebird. He climbed carefully into the old boat, dust flying everywhere. He looked for an eye. He found it. The small glass porthole on the cabin of the boat was round and blue, like an eye. He carefully pressed on the glass. It didn't open. He looked closer. The porthole wasn't just painted blue. It was made of thick blue glass, and there was a small, almost invisible scratch on the glass, just like the one Lila pointed out on the bookcase. Leo used a small tool from his backpack to gently pry the glass open. The blue glass porthole opened outward on a small hinge. Inside, tucked into a velvet pouch, was a small, antique brass key. It was the key to the whispering box. He had the key. Now, the radio. He searched the shed frantically. He found an old metal shelf covered in boxes. Tucked beneath an old fishing net was a dusty, red emergency radio. He picked it up. He pressed the power button. Nothing. The battery was dead. "No!" Leo gasped, frustration and fear overwhelming him. He was trapped. He had the key, but no way to call for help. Just as Leo put the dead radio down, he heard a sound behind him. The boathouse door slammed shut. Clunk! The sound of a heavy padlock sliding into place. "Looking for this little man?" A voice, low, cold and smooth, spoke from the darkness. Leo spun around. Standing in front of the locked door was a woman. She was wrapped in a thick, dark jacket, her face hidden by a knitted hat and scarf. "Who are you?" Leo asked, terrified, gripping the key tightly in his pocket. "I'm the person your Aunt Lila calls the Whisperer," the woman replied, her voice mocking. "And I'm the one who knew Evan would fail. Evan is too orderly, too loud. He couldn't keep Lila quiet forever." "You were the one watching the cabin," Leo realized. "Of course. I need that box, Leo," she said, stepping closer. "That box doesn't just hold Lila's ideas. It holds the key to a secret file, a file that proves I did something very wrong a long time ago. Lila promised to expose me if I didn't stop bothering her." Leo suddenly remembered seeing this woman at the wedding. She was a friend of Evan's from the police department, a detective named Sarah. "Evan is protecting you," Leo realized. "That's why he wants the box. He's covering up for a fellow officer." "Exactly. Evan doesn't want things messy. My secret is a messy stain on his perfect police record. He wants to save his career and his perfect new marriage," Sarah, the Whisperer, explained, her voice getting harder. "But he was too slow. I knew Lila would try to send a message." She pointed to the wooden crate Leo had used to climb to the window. "You're a clever little detective, Leo. But now, you'll give me the key." Leo knew he couldn't fight her. She was much stronger. He had to distract her. He had to get back to the cabin. "I don't have the key," Leo shouted, scrambling back toward the boat. "It's in the cabin. Lila gave it to Evan." "Liar!" Sarah lunged forward, but Leo was fast. He scrambled out of the boat and across the floor. He saw a small, rusty ice pick hanging from the wall. He grabbed it. He ran toward the back window of the boathouse, a small, cracked pane of glass, high on the wall. "Stay still, Leo," Sarah yelled, running after him. Leo smashed the ice pick against the glass, making a loud, splintering sound. He didn't have time to climb out. The loud crash was the distraction he needed. Sarah froze for a split second, shielding her face from the flying shards. Leo grabbed the dead emergency radio and hurled it out the broken window. It landed with a loud thump in the deep snow. "The radio!" Sarah screamed. "Is it working?" She rushed toward the broken window, desperate to check the radio. Leo used that moment. He ran to the door and shoved the sharp end of the ice pick into the small gap between the door and the frame, frantically trying to work the rusty padlock free. It was no use. The lock was too heavy. Sarah turned back, her eyes burning with rage. "You little pest! You'll pay for that!" Leo, out of options, dove toward an old frozen fishing sled. He grabbed the rope handle and pulled with all his might. The sled shot out from under a pile of nets. He grabbed the sled and zipped out the broken window, landing hard in the snow. Sarah was right behind him, bursting through the door and chasing him onto the frozen lake. "Give me the key, Leo," she shouted. Leo ran, pulling the empty sled behind him. He ran across the vast, white, frozen expanse of Lake Vermilion. He knew he had to get back to the cabin. That was the only place he could get help. The sound of the chase was loud on the ice. Leo's sneakers squeaked, and Sarah's heavy boots crunched behind him. Leo kept pulling the sled. He ran as fast as his 10-year-old legs would carry him. Sarah was gaining ground. She was faster and stronger. "Stop running, you idiot! I'm a police officer," she shouted, trying to sound authoritative. "You're a criminal," Leo yelled back. Suddenly, Leo had an idea. He was pulling the sled toward a dark patch of open water near the middle of the lake, a spot where the current was too fast for the ice to freeze completely. He turned abruptly, pulling the sled. He used his small body to quickly change direction. Sarah, running too fast, couldn't stop. She skidded wildly on the ice. Crash! She slammed into the empty sled, sending it spinning away. She stumbled, falling hard onto the frozen lake. Leo didn't wait. He sprinted toward the far shore, where the cabin sat silently. He burst out of the trees and ran straight for the cabin. He banged frantically on the front door. "Lila! Lila! I have the key. I need your help." Inside, Evan woke up with a start. He looked confused, then angry as he saw Leo through the window. "Leo, what are you doing here?" Evan yelled, unlocking the heavy door. Leo didn't hesitate. He burst into the cabin. "She's coming. Sarah, the Whisperer. She wants the key to the whispering box," Leo shouted, holding up the brass key. Evan's face went white. The calm control was gone, replaced by pure terror. "Sarah? How did you know?" Evan stammered. Lila rushed to Leo. "He's telling the truth, Evan. She was here. You've been protecting a criminal. You didn't just want order. You wanted to cover up a fellow officer's secret." Evan looked from Lila to the terrified Leo. He looked outside and saw a dark figure sprinting across the snow towards the cabin. "Oh no, I did this," Evan whispered, sinking onto the sofa. "I just wanted the chaos to stop. I wanted the box gone so my perfect life wasn't ruined." He wasn't a hero. He was just a coward who chose control over truth. Sarah burst through the door, her face a mask of cold fury. "Give me the key, Evan. Don't let the kid mess this up." Evan looked at the badge on his discarded jacket. He looked at the pure fear in Lila's eyes. He looked at the courage of his nephew. He finally chose the truth. Evan stood up, facing Sarah. "You're under arrest, Sarah. I saw your secret file. You're the Whisperer. I'm calling this in." He reached for the cabin phone, but Sarah was faster. She lunged, not for the phone, but for the brass key in Leo's hand. Sarah wrestled the key from Leo's grip. "It's mine," she screamed triumphantly. She held the key up, but as she raised her hand, Lila acted. She grabbed the shattered vase from the hearth and threw it with all her strength at the nearest lamp. The lamp shattered. The main room was plunged into shadow. Evan tackled Sarah, grabbing her arm. The key clattered across the floor. "Lila, the phone!" Evan yelled. Lila scrambled for the phone. She picked it up and quickly dialed the emergency number. Sarah struggled violently, but Evan's police training finally took over, now used for the right reasons. He wrestled her to the ground and held her there. The police arrived quickly, lights flashing through the pine trees. Sarah was arrested, her police career and her life of secrets ending right there in the snowy cabin. Evan, humbled and broken, was also taken in for questioning regarding his obstruction of justice. He would face consequences, but he had finally chosen the truth over control. A week later, Lila and Leo were safely back in the city. The whispering box, now unlocked, was given to Detective Rosa, the good officer who Evan had secretly confessed the truth to. Inside the box was a flash drive containing the evidence, photos, documents, and recordings that exposed Sarah's illegal activities, the secrets she had been whispering about for years. Lila and Evan's marriage was over. It was ruined, not by love, but by Evan's deep need for control and his fear of mess. Lila gave the whispering box to Leo. "You saved me, Leo," Lila said, hugging him. "You showed me that the most perfect thing is not order, but courage and honesty." Leo kept the box on his shelf. He still admired his Uncle Evan, but now he understood that real heroes don't wear neat uniforms. They are honest even when it's messy. He had learned the lesson of the cabin. Don't judge a book by its cover, and don't trust the calm when chaos is hiding underneath. He had the whispering box, and now he had a new vow: to always be honest, even if it meant disrupting the peace. The greatest threat is not the one outside your door, but the one you let inside your heart.